Elsie Kersley. I'm currently the president of the South African Academy of Engineering, and I'm a professor here at Pretoria University, a professor in civil engineering. Now, today is International Women's Day, and we are celebrating it on campus. And because of the lockdown level, we sadly cannot remove our masks because I have 4 guests with me, and I'm going to introduce the guests soon. And it's fantastic to be able to introduce 4 role models to you, and it's female engineers. When I started studying engineering, it's exactly 40 years ago this year, the newspapers came to campus to take photos of us. Because for the first time in the history of the university, there was a group of 15 females studying engineering. And that was a breakthrough. Our biggest problem at that stage was that they were not really role models for us. So it's fantastic today to be able to celebrate women in engineering with a load of really strong role models. I would like you to start sending us some questions, because while these role models are here, it'll be a fantastic opportunity for you to get some of your burning questions answered. So my first guest is Melanie Padiachi-Saman, and I'm going to allow Melanie to introduce herself.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really honored and truly privileged to be here today, Elsie, and thank you for inviting me to this particular panel. My name, as Elsie has indicated, is Melanie Padiachi-Saman. I am the CEO of MPA MOT. I'm a registered professional civil engineer, and I've been in the profession for around 30 years. Around 24 years ago, I actually started my own consulting practice, one of the first females to have started a consulting engineering practice in South Africa at that time. And I think the reason why I was bold enough to start my own practice was because I had spent a period abroad working after having graduated in South Africa, obtained my professional registration. I then went abroad and spent a short period working there, and that gave me the confidence and comfort to want to go out on my own. It's been a really incredible journey, which I'm sure during the presentation I'm going to share snippets of that with you. But I think the most exciting part of that journey has been what transpired last year, where I grew my staff complement from 40 to 200, having acquired the local offices of Mott MacDonald Africa. So hoping to share with you some really exciting and interesting experiences in this discussion. Thank you, Elsie.
My next guest is Nizipho Dlamini, and I'm also going to allow you to introduce yourself, Nizipho.
All right, good afternoon, everyone, and happy International Women in Engineering Day. Yay. I'm Nizipho Dlamini. I'm the Technical Services Manager at Thungela Resources Limited. I am a mining engineer. I actually graduated from the University of Pretoria in 2007, so I've been working for more than 10 years now in the mining engineering space. Started off at Sasol Mining and grew through my career, and now I'm the Technical Services Manager, meaning I lead about 8 formal departments and a lot more other informal stuff that I do. Surveying, environmental, ventilation, occupational hygiene, business improvement. It's quite a vast and diverse team of people that I enjoy working with, and I enjoy the impact that we make. I always pride myself that I'm the technical services manager for the most productive mine in South Africa. So that feels good, that feels good. And I'm happy to be here, looking forward to the conversation.
And my next guest is Dr. Lelani Smith. Lelani, introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Elsie. Thank you so much. And it's so great to be on this panel with all of you. I'm really curious to see what we're going to chat about. So my background is in mechanical and aeronautical engineering. I finished my degree here, and then I did my postgraduate all over the place, but always linked to the university. So mostly looked at an aerospace kind of environment. And then I started becoming involved in a kind of vertically integrated teamwork space that we ran internationally at some stage. And that started making me wonder about how educating engineers can look different. So currently at the university, I'm working in the faculty and working on vertically integrated projects and community-based projects, but still doing my research in my aerospace. So still some aircraft on the side. Yeah, so looking forward to the discussion.
My fourth guest here today is Marielle Hobson. And Marielle, introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Hi, good afternoon. So my name is Marielle Hobson, and I'm a second-year electronic engineering student at the University of Pretoria. And I'm also the chairperson of Engineers Without Borders for this year. I actually form part of one of the small research and development groups that Dr. Smith heads up. And yeah, really looking forward to being part of this discussion. As an engineering student, I don't have as much experience to share as these ladies do, but a lot of wisdom from studying, and I'm excited to share that with you all.
Again, as we know that there are a lot of school children listening in, hopefully, and we want to aim it at some career guidance. We will come back to studying engineering, what's required to study engineering. So if you want to send us your questions, please do. We will answer them. So I'm going to come back to Melanie, and I'm going to ask you, Melanie, you're now a businesswoman with a really big business, and you're also a professional engineer. What do you see yourself as? What do you find the most important of those two roles?
Neither of them, Elsabe. I think the most important thing is I'm a mother first. And I think often as females in typically a male-dominated arena, and we were chatting about this earlier, Leilani, is that people don't necessarily recognize you for the fact that behind all of this businesswoman and professional engineer, you are still a person. And that's why I say probably the most important thing is that I'm a mother first. When I look at the scenario of a businesswoman and professional engineer, I think it's important to recognize the fact that particular in the working environment, you can play different roles. Once you've graduated and studied and been in the sector for a while, because there's basically three different sides of the work environment that you can function in. You could either be very business-orientated, entrepreneurial, you can be very technical in terms of the professional skills, or you can actually be in a managerial position in terms of leading others. The advantage, though, is that in order for you to excel in the business area, it's critically important that you build your technical skills, your professional skills, because it immediately elevates your status in the work environment. Because you could, like, for example, I could easily go into to see a client, and rather than having to now rely on a business development person within the organization, I could immediately provide a solution. That immediately gives you an advantage. And you can only really acquire that is if after graduating, you focus on developing your technical skills. Obviously, the most important thing is becoming professionally registered, and that should be something that most graduates actually strive to very early in their career. And thereafter, it's about acquiring those highly specialized skills, like Leilani has focused on. It's important that we, as South African professionals, actually excel in terms of acquiring our masters and PhDs and becoming industry leaders, and not necessarily just industry leaders in a local context, but more globally recognized. I think that's a huge area that we need to focus. So I trust I've answered your question appropriately.
You've answered my question, but I have another question for you. And that deals with, I came from a house where my father was a civil engineer, and we always went to construction sites with him. So I knew exactly what I was in for. I didn't realize it was not normal for an engineer to be female. I thought it was 50-50 male and female, like on school, and it was a massive shock when I got to university, and it wasn't like that. But you come from a household where there's no engineers in your family when you grew up. So why engineering, and why civil engineering? And what would you recommend to school children that's interested in engineering but come from an environment where it's not normal to study engineering?
Okay, lucky you, Elsabe. You at least had that mentorship and a role model. I'm sincerely hoping that in the audience there are certainly some individuals from my hometown, a little rural community called Mzinto in the lower South Coast, that are listening in. And I think that besides that, I'm sure that there are many other young learners in the audience that do come from rural communities as well. And I think often, having grown up in such communities, it's often quite a challenge to be able to find and identify role models that one could aspire to. And unfortunately, at that time, you didn't have Google to do these searches and to understand what you were getting yourself into. But I think in my case, the idea and the kind of excitement of choosing something that was not the norm, and maybe more importantly, trying to because I came from a very traditional Hindu family with a very strict father, so I actually wanted to get away from home in a bit. And I think, and I think as a result, I applied for all of these crazy kind of professions that I didn't even know anything about. And be that as it may, it was, you sort of end up following your passion. And that's exactly what happened in my case. And interestingly enough, I actually didn't start off doing civil engineering. I started off doing chemical engineering. And it was only in my second year being at university that I switched over to civil engineering as a result of the influence of one of the dean of the faculty at the time, an incredible, who's the late Professor Brian Doherty. It was as a result of that that he asked me to consider pursuing civil engineering. And I must admit, I've never regretted a day in my life of having chosen that career path, because my work is my passion, without a doubt, and
Nozipho,
thoroughly enjoying it.
why mining engineering?
So, like a lot like Malani, I also grew up. I was born in a small town in Mpumalanga called Bethel, and if you know in the Mpumalanga area, there's a lot of mines. And you would see, the grown-ups waking up, going to work, getting in their staff buses and going to work. And I don't think I ever thought about it until I really got to high school. I chose technical subjects in high school, so I was always in the science and math space. I was good at it, not passionate though. I actually wanted to be a writer. Wanted to study African literature and write books. But those kind of fields don't offer a lot of bursaries. And engineering companies do offer a lot of bursaries because it's a scarce skills and not a lot of representation. So they do offer a lot of bursaries. So I started going on various interviews in my matric year. And I remember at one of the interviews at the Sasol mines, they invited us for an underground visit. So it was June holidays during my matric year, got dressed to go underground. It was quite fun. And as we were driving out of the mine manager that was taking us around stopped where 3 conveyor belts were going into a bunker. And he said to me, there's nothing like the feel of coal filling up in a bunker at the end of the shift. And for me, that was like the way he said it, and also just the instant gratification that came with this kind of work, and I was sold. Besides, the interviews are also quite interesting, and the prospect of what you could do while you're in that kind of field were interesting to me. And I mean, I could always be a writer. I tried to do, in your spare time, you could always be a writer. So I got passionate and excited about the possibilities, about the instant gratification that you get from this kind of work. You see your results, you work towards something hard, you see the results daily. And that's how I got into the space. When I started studying mining engineering, I was at Tuks. I enjoyed it quite a lot. We did a lot of work and projects. We visited a lot of operations. I still stayed within the coal space. I also continued to then do my honors and masters in technology management, which opens you up to other different business-related fields to support the mines. So I think I'm quite well-rounded, and I'm still enjoying what I'm doing. So that bunker and the belts diverging and into one area, that sold it for me.
Being at one of the large coal mines, it's an underground mine,
Yes.
It's a very hardcore, male-orientated or male-dominated field. Do you think there are special challenges for females in that environment, or?
Yeah, not from a physical work perspective. I think mining and other engineering industries have done a lot to automate and to make the processes a lot easier to physically do. There may still be some challenges, but they're being addressed quite well. I think the trick comes with the leadership, because I remember when I started, I was a 21-year-old leading a team of men whose probably average age was 40. So that poses quite a number of challenges, and if you're not mature and ready for that kind of space, it quickly throws you off. Luckily, I think I surrendered to the process and I let myself learn and was taught by them. I mean, they're experts in the field. They've been doing this work for many years. So I didn't come in with the pompous, I'm an engineer, I can do this. I learned from everyone around me. I continue to learn from the people who've been doing this work for 50 years that have, that I get an opportunity to learn from. So I think not as much challenges on the physical work, but more on, it takes a lot of maturity, dedication, discipline to lead people. And you need to take that responsibility and handle it as such.
Do you think females can bring a different attribute to the mining environment?
I think so. I think my best bosses have been female bosses. I spent my first 8 years working for men, no issues. But I had my first female boss 8 years after I started working. And it was a revelation to me to see how she got people to follow her without even trying, by just showing a softer, vulnerable side to the work that she was doing. She would call on a Sunday and I answer on the first ring because you wanted to follow someone who showed that kind of soft skills that typically other people wouldn't be able to show freely. So I think we're being a more nurturing approach to the working environment, and it becomes easier for us, I think, to lead people. And I'm not sure if you've experienced it like that. I think because we approach situations in a kinder way, it does help a lot. Yeah.
Leilani, why mechanical engineering?
I have so many comments on what they're saying, but okay, let's start with that. Well, by accident, really. I think I started doing actuarial sciences after math. But I always wanted to be like a psychologist, maybe, or a math teacher, or an astronaut. That was actually my scope of interest. And then I remember in my second year of actuarial science sitting in economics or something and deciding this is not my life. And I went to a guidance counselor and they said, what do you like? And I was like, I like the math, but I want something more applied. And so they gave me the options of mechanical or electronic. I don't get electricity still. Well, and so I started doing mechanical engineering, and I think it really clicked in my third year only. When I started doing fluid mechanics, aeronautics, those kind of modules, I think I fell in love with the math of fluids, and I think that's still what I'm doing. I do computational fluid mechanics, so it's still something that I enjoy quite a lot. But I almost want to say mechanical engineering, and I think all engineering, and maybe any degree, but my subjective experience in engineering, it transforms you. It's almost the thing that I want to say is the most challenging about engineering is not the math, it's not science, it's not who you are, but it's almost like how open you are to being transformed, because you almost have to place your personal subjectivity, everything away, and then look at a problem, really understand the context, really understand the problem, and then bring some kind of process or some kind of understanding to that. And I think that makes engineering difficult and frustrating, because you're changing, and the way you're viewing the world is changing, and the way you address anything, personally or professionally, changes. So yeah, I think regardless of where we find ourselves, that is a difficult thing to do.
I have a question to you, and that's about the community project that you're very actively involved in. I think most people watching would be interested, so please tell us some more about community project.
Yeah, so I still love aircraft, but I kind of fell out of love with the hard like design aircraft and so on. I think it happened again by accident. I started becoming involved in a drone development project for rhino poaching, and very early on realized that this is not really a technical problem. There's a lot of like socioeconomic kind of aspects to it, and I was like, wow, okay, I can't solve this with a drone. But it gave a great opportunity for students to come together from second year through to postgraduate, also international interns, to work together on a real project and think about that and understand the context and be demotivated because it's not a technical problem, and start to think about who else do we need to engage in this conversation. And I think it was with that in mind that I started wondering, can engineering become an experience of that, where as you develop and you learn all these technical skills, can you at the same time develop personally and professionally and have almost a stream run through your degree where you end up either serving your immediate community. So what I'm doing in my second year in some project, I can see how my immediate community or a community I'm close to is transforming. And my third year and fourth year appropriately scaled. So I started becoming obsessed with this like vertical integration idea, and when the community-based module for the faculty opened up, I was like, great, okay, this is something I can start to see if it can work in that way. And I have to say, I've learned a lot. I've only been in this role for the last 7-8 months, and I've learned a lot from how architecture at our university has done it. They've actually incorporated from second year through to the graduate modules a whole journey that they walk with communities, and that's really my hope for the whole module, that it's not just in your second year you come in, you do 40 hours of work and then you ditch. It should really become something where you start to engage with a community, and it's not just me as a second year, but it's me as an integrated group, third year, fourth year, final year, or honors student, where you sit and you map and you really understand communities. Because I think for me, it might be naivety. I came to this role and I thought, okay, I'll meet with the communities. It will be fairly straightforward. They'll tell me the problem. I'll figure out what the solutions are. I'll source the groups, done. And my first industry visit, like you guys are saying, there's a professional skill that you need to bring to that space. I got there and like, wow, okay, for half an hour we were talking about things that are not engineering. And somehow in this we need to figure out what we can do. But I clicked in that moment, collaboration is the only way we can do this. And I think both of you have also spoken to that component, that we can almost like network and bring the group together. It's a collective conversation continuously between University of Pretoria and our faculty and the communities to see how we can support and uplift each other. That was a long way around, but hopefully it answers the question.
No, it does, it does. And so Marielle, you're currently still a student, but maybe before you talk about studying, tell us something about your initiative with Engineering Without Borders.
Yes, of course. Okay, so Engineers Without Borders is basically like Doctors Without Borders, but we use drills and hammers instead of stethoscopes. So we're an international organization, and we have chapters all across the world, and chapters at most of the universities in South Africa as well. And EWB UP is one of those student chapters. One of the biggest problems in South Africa is that a lot of our communities remain underserved. They don't have access to basic things like running water, electricity, internet. And I think, as we all have seen, those problems have worsened tremendously over the last year. So what we do at EWB UP, and what Engineers Without Borders does in general, is we aim to empower engineers to empower their communities. And we do this by providing upskilling, by providing mentorship and training, so that engineers and engineering students can go out into communities and enact real change in the communities that they work in.
Now back to being a student. You've been a student during lockdown. What has it been like?
I must say it was a tremendous shift. I think everybody across the world experienced some sort of shift and had to adapt in some way. One thing that I do think I have to mention is how outstanding the staff and the lecturers and the peers at the University of Pretoria were. Lecturers provided extra office hours, and UP provided data and laptops to students who didn't have access to that. So really there was a great sense of, we're all in this together and you're not alone. And I think that really helped throughout lockdown. So we're still studying from home. And one thing that really impacted my time studying from home was time management. It's a skill that I had to learn very quickly, time management and discipline. When you have assignments and tests due almost every single day, if you don't manage your time, you're quickly going to forget something. So yeah, it was an experience, but I think I learned a lot through that experience, and I think in some way I can be quite grateful for it.
Is engineering hard?
Blame ladies.
It's rewarding.
It is, yeah.
Oh, it is, definitely. It's hard, but it's rewarding.
Yeah.
And I think hard is relative. You know, a lot of things are hard when you first start with them because it's scary. I'm in this new situation and I don't exactly know what to expect. For example, when you started doing the times table, very simple thing now, but when you started, it was scared and it was hard. But yeah, I think a lot of the problems in engineering may seem difficult and tough because they require an imaginative and creative solution. All of the rest, all of that math and science, it can be learned and it can be mastered through practice. So yes, it is tough, but it's so, so rewarding. And to all of the viewers who are listening, if you have an urge and a passion for math and science, I would definitely suggest going into this field. It's an amazing field. It changes your way of thinking. It changes how you see and interact with life. Hard, but rewarding.
Yeah, that's why I don't think any of us have ever regretted studying engineering. It's
at
really hard work, but if you work constantly, you can do it.
Yeah.
And you can make a difference. 'Cause I don't think there are many other things you can study that you can use so widely. You can have one degree, and there are so many things that you can do with that one degree because you are trained to solve problems.
Yes, definitely.
So that brings me back to you guys in terms of what do you think the most important attributes are for a good engineer?
Before I answer that, Elsabe, I just want to sort of, get back to Lelani's community-based program. I think that's absolutely incredible that the university has introduced such a stream because, you often feel that with regards to what we do, I mean, no two projects are the same, but we often forget who the end user is. And those are actually people, they're communities that need to respond to whatever we do. And we generally tend to, being a civil engineer, you tend to think of transport, roads, rail, airports, etc. But you don't necessarily understand the principles behind it, that it's actually communities we're servicing. So I often feel that, in the fields that we're in, if we were focusing more on the communities and the community needs, like what you currently looking at in terms of equipping the graduates for the future, is you would actually achieve a lot more. It's, the other stuff like the water, the road infrastructures, and all, etc., housing and stuff, it's a product of our actual customer who are in fact communities.
Because Dr. Harry Siftel, a British medical people, was saying that more lives have been saved by engineering than by medicine over the centuries. And that is
so
true.
true.
It's our job to create infrastructure for humanity. And I think
Exactly.
we've left the humanity out of our equation for quite
but
a
it's
while.
good we're getting back to it, and I'm very encouraged by what I've just heard now. And just getting back to your question then, Elsabe, what are the kind of attributes that as an employer one would look for in a young graduate? I think it's important to note that in a lot of my early interviews, particularly in trying to get on board young graduates, I didn't necessarily look at only the technical skills. It was critically important to me to know that people had a well-rounded and a balanced kind of service offering. I think it's important as young engineers and graduates that the focus is not only on the kind of classroom learning activities that you would get in tertiary institutions, but one would need to extend yourself because the world is changing so quickly. And a graduate that has equipped themselves in other areas and in soft skills, etc., on the coding side and, equipping themselves in things that might not traditionally be offered by universities is far more useful to an employer than someone that has not done that. And I think a lot of that kind of information, a lot of it is online, it's accessible to a large degree. So I would urge students and graduates to pursue and to look at other skills that they can equip themselves to be work ready. And also there's a strong practical element to what you do as well. As all the ladies have stated, it's very much about problem solving. it's important if you are pursuing a career in engineering that you are a problem solver. And you'd find that many females are inherently. So without a doubt, you are problem solvers in every aspect of your
But
life.
tenacious problem solvers
Yes.
and stubborn problem solvers.
Yeah,
to-
exactly,
Because
yeah.
sometimes it is tough, and I think especially with the students, it's tough, but never giving up, I think is part of the solution.
Very much so.
So
yeah.
what do you think is the attributes?
I think curiosity and like Malani says, be curious, learn new things. Passion also comes through. You know, you need to be out engaging with communities. We think you're just going to be sitting in front of a computer designing things, but you need to make sure you meet the requirements of your user. So someone that's got that softer skills as well, curiosity in terms of learning new things, learning coding. I love it when people bring solutions that are out of the box. You know, we can't take water samples here because it's unsafe. Well, can you send a drone to go take the water sample for you? So don't just think problems, but think about all the possibilities that exist to solve those specific problems. And it's always so encouraging to see someone that sees the bigger picture. So you're not just coming here to, again, work in front of a computer, but you're here to meet the bigger picture as well. So I always look out for that. My mentor said to me last week, if someone applies for a job, I look at what they comment on LinkedIn. And I was like, ooh, Nena, now I need to look at what I comment on. Because it shows your interests as well and the kind of networks that you are building. I love it when people are networking in industry, are part of professional bodies like Sanaya and the civil engineering associations, and they participate in those because it shows that they're constantly trying to learn new things and they need to bring those back to the working environment and see where they can apply them. So yeah, stay curious.
Malani, same thing.
Yeah, I want to almost resonate all of that and say that being self-directed is really important, I think, also. And I think I was just thinking about when you both spoke, often, and I was there, and maybe you are there, you study and you're driven to pass, get the marks, maybe do the best, but whatever the case, just get my degree. The focus is just get my degree. And I think in that process of just get my degree, you often miss excellent opportunities to personally and professionally develop. And I think modules like the community-based modules, but there are other project-based modules in engineering that really challenge and push you a bit. None of us work in isolation as engineers. Like, I can't make a Boeing fly. Like, there are thousands of variety of engineers and other people working together in any engineering space. And given these opportunities where you work in teams, where there's personal frustration, where you make mistakes, where you fail, of course there's consequences, you lose marks, etc. But students often go into some stressed out mode about losing 2% and miss the opportunity to say, okay, cool, I failed. What can I learn from this? Can I grow? Like, can I do this differently in the next iteration? And I think almost, I wonder, with curiosity, if something like the pandemic, where it's almost questioning our roles as lecturers, if all the content is made available online in a very great way, students can look at it in their own time. What is our role on campus? What do we practically facilitate? And what can we develop in a student? And does it not then come to that place where we are going to develop these attributes that industry really needs students to walk in and be leaders? We don't have time for you to, oh, I don't know how to network, I don't know how to communicate, I don't know how to deal with failure. You almost want the students to come in and fly. And I'm hoping this shift will, on both sides, us as academics across everywhere in the world, shift in terms of how we define ourselves, but also how students perceive the learning experience, that it's not just this mark-driven, degree-driven focus.
Definitely. I think I can comment on that. You know, you think, really, I think especially when you're sitting at home and you're studying all by yourself, it's, I have a test, I have an assignment today, tomorrow, and let me just get it done. And you miss out on these opportunities to actually take in what you're learning. And you also miss out on a lot of opportunities, networking opportunities that would have taken place in person. Thank goodness, I think, through modules like the JCP module that Dr. Smith runs, we're allowed to go out into communities with fellow students and work with other people and take our, some of the skills that we're learning in our degree and put them to good use. So if I can say anything, it's that Dr. Smith has done an amazing job with the module that she's handling this year. Really, it's so well-rounded. The things that we're learning, I mean, the other day we were learning about personality types, and I brought that home, and everyone in my family did a personality type test, and yeah. No, it's really, it's
Interesting.
wow. It's a great module, and I think just so necessary as students for us during this time.
Now, after studying, I would like to ask you, what do you think the secret is to success in a career in engineering? What makes you successful? What do you need to have to make you successful? And I think you've partially answered that already.
No, LCB, success is relative, isn't it? Yeah. And it will differ for each person. I think in my case, it's the fact that I've chosen a profession that's kind of purpose-driven, and it impacts on communities at scale.
It makes a difference.
It makes a difference, exactly, and I find that very rewarding.
Zippo?
Why are you taking my answer? But I feel exactly like that, especially in the role that I'm in. I always say my favorite department is my environmental department, because that's where I feel I'm making a social impact to the community, but also the environment that we work in. So it's, and like you say, success is subjective, and the feeling of thinking, of knowing that you are making an impact is what defines success. Over my career, I thought it was going to the next later step, the next later step there, but now it's more of how much impact did I make today. So that's what's defining success for me at this stage. But I think in terms of when you do start working, how do you ensure that you continue to grow in this career and you don't get despondent at any point? I think define what your goals are, what your family goals are, be with someone that will support your goals as well. What Sheryl Sandberg, the COO of Facebook, always says, who you marry will determine is your best career decision, or it can be your best or your worst career decision. So you kind of need to build your life around what it is that your goals are, so that everybody else and everything else in your life supports what those goals are.
Nalani?
Yeah, I definitely agree with the making an impact, but I almost think as a skill towards becoming successful, I think collaboration and having an open mind is really key. I've often found, me personally, I shut down if someone comes in with all the answers and they have the right way and this is the way and let's go. Yeah. It could be at times that someone has that true unique solution and okay, cool, we're all on board. But I think, especially in engineering, coming to a space with questions and with ideas and with opportunities and having all the voices being heard. I wish industries didn't have this focus on becoming the most successful or having the most money or the most power, because can you imagine the development if we all just kind of had a collective goal? The impact is definitely important, and I think towards that, networking and collaboration is key.
Because that, to me, is passion. If you're passionate about something and you go fully, you will be successful. And success, I agree with you, success is not counted as being the boss or the richest. It's making a difference. And I do think engineering is a very good way of making a difference. Challenges. What is the biggest challenges that you have faced?
Sure, that's a difficult one. Challenges. I think I'm not going to say the typical ones, because that tends to be the norm. I mean, certainly a female in a male-dominated sector would lend itself to numerous challenges, but I think I love challenges, and I'm sure there's lots of you around here that would say the same thing. And I think the reason why I love challenges is once you've overcome them, that the kind of gratification you get from having succeeded in dealing with a very difficult site manager or whatever the problem is what actually makes it that much more rewarding. So and in terms of currently, though, we faced with a situation where, where I think that with the pandemic that we faced with now, there's huge opportunities, and that in itself is a huge challenge. And how we navigate and how we're able to sort of put ourselves out there and leapfrog this pandemic and be able to create and address some of those legacy issues that we faced with in the country is what is going to be the defining moment in our lives.
Yeah.
And I would like to think that we're going to actually be able to do that successfully and be the generation that's looked back on one day and say that, we did it, and we did it
I think
well.
we have already done it. If you
And-
look at the European universities, they've lost an academic year. We haven't
Yeah.
lost anything.
Yes,
We've gone
that's
through
true.
severe pain. It has not been painless going on to online teaching or online learning, but we have managed to go through the whole system with losing holidays, with losing vacations, writing
true.
exams still in January. But despite the whole pandemic so far, we have managed to keep the South African universities running, while most universities in Europe lost a year or had
Yeah.
students graduate without writing exams, which we didn't have. So I think we're not doing too badly in terms of
Most
making a
definitely.
plan.
Most definitely, yeah. We've been very quick at, very responsive in our solutions as well. And I think that goes on all fronts. I mean, even on the work front, people were actively gainfully employed soon after we went into lockdown. And I think from it's a huge challenge what we faced with now, but how we come out of it is going to make that difference. And I'm excited about all of the challenges that are placed in front of us. And I think it's, we kind of tackle them on a day-to-day basis. And unfortunately, you can't have like long strategies and plans and stuff. And I appreciate the fact that it's important to set yourself goals. But you find that you're navigating on a daily basis all of these obstacles and trying to find a solution. And I can tell you, and I rest assured that all of those leadership books and all that exist, many of them have to be rewritten to be able to deal with what we're faced with currently. So.
Challenges and rewards. Nzipho.
Challenges and rewards. I think, Malani said it, challenges for engineers are exciting because we problem solvers, you can solve problems. I think in a working environment or in a business environment, it's people. People are difficult, and it's how you work with people and you collaborate and you create the networks and the relationship. How are you able to sell the idea or your solution to someone? And those are the softer skills that become the most challenging for engineers. So it's important that you still develop that side of your skills over and above the technical work that you do. Collaborate with people, learn from people, facilitate the problem solving so they are part of the solution as well. And those are the skills that you need to develop, and that's the biggest challenge you'll actually face when you get to the working environment, and it's important that you navigate those skills. Rewards, like I said, my job is instant gratification. I'm lucky I'm able to see results almost on a daily basis, even though it rolls up to the bigger picture. So celebrate your small wins. I do. You have many losses a day, but you also have the one win that you need to celebrate. It is a rewarding job. You have an impact on communities. You have an impact on environment. You have impact on the goals that your company has. So that's the rewarding part of the work that we do.
Zolani.
I almost want to tie in with you kind of both playing on this idea of goals and not having goals. I think for me, the most challenging thing was having a goal and kind of changing that mindset to making the goal a bit more flexible. And it happened fairly recently, I have to say, in the last 4 or 5 years. I think when I started more in my postgraduate, I had this vision of how aerospace engineering will be the main thing in the engineering faculty, and I had like all these plans. And I mean, a lot of my career trajectory moved towards that, but at some stage I changed and my goals didn't align as well to what I wanted to be. But I got used to, and I got used to that female in aerospace engineering is rare, and it was a whole role and identity that took me over. And it was very challenging for me to step out of that and move away from that. And I don't know if other engineers feel the same, like if you have to move through different roles, like in and out of engineering. I found the identifying as an engineer quite restricting in a way, at least in the way that I had it perceived or played in my mind. So I really had to step back and reevaluate who I am, what is important, and not lose myself in this engineering identity. So it might be a more personal.
It's lovely to hear the challenges are no longer equal pay and can a woman be an engineer. It's so lovely that we're on an equal playing field. We can talk about challenges being personal development and rewards being you get promoted if you should be, you get a reward of I did a fantastic job here, my plan worked, the problem was solved. It's lovely. It's so, that to me is really rewarding. After all these years, we're now in a position where we can talk as equals. And it's no longer, women in engineering is almost, we are now celebrating it, which is fantastic.
Yes, so true.
So as a student, challenges and rewards.
Well, I think as you all mentioned, challenges are there to challenge you. So take them head on. If something comes your way, don't be afraid of it. Take it head on. Challenges are there to help you grow. And I think one of the challenges that I've experienced as a student, you know, apart from the academic work, is developing yourself outside of, university work and the modules that you take. So one of the things that I have done to really push myself outside of my comfort zone and to try and learn new skills and meet new people is through joining Engineers Without Borders. It's just such a fantastic organization that has really opened my eyes to what the world of engineering looks like. And I've met so many new people, and I think that has been the rewarding part of that. So through that challenge, through trying to develop myself, the rewards that have come of that have been really fantastic.
Great. So we now, please, if you have questions, send us your questions. I'm now going to go back to asking everybody if you now can give advice to future students, school children having to make the decision, should I study engineering or not? What type of advice would you give them?
And Elsabe, I just discovered what my biggest challenge is. It's actually this mask.
That's true. That's true.
No, because
You don't realize how much you can read in someone's face if you can see their mouth. You always think eyes are important, but the mouth is important too.
That
Sorry,
is.
Melanie.
Just what advice would I give somebody wanting to pursue a career in engineering? I think if you are that type of person that's very has problem-solving abilities, enjoys breaking and fixing things, is always asking the question why, is always interested in some of the problems that we might have and looking for solutions to them. Certainly, obviously, you've alluded to the maths and sciences and excels in maths and sciences. I think it is certainly the profession that you should consider. I think it's exciting in the sense that no two projects are the same, so your life would be very varied. Your solutions would be varied. It allows you to sort of achieve a sense of fulfillment in your life insofar as knowing that you've actually solved a problem that has a wider benefit for a community or for industry. And yeah, I think if you're that kind of individual, then certainly it's worth pursuing. It also is a very varied profession. So when you talk about a specific discipline, whether it's mechanical or you'd be amazed at how many areas there are within those engineering fields that you can pursue. And they're very, very different. And skills that would be required in those specific areas are also completely different. So you can possibly pursue something in mechanical engineering, but there could be at least, 50, 60 odd different areas that you could be focusing on. And that makes it exciting as well. So even if you pursue the career and complete it, you still have a whole work kind of a history that follows that would direct you in any direction that you would want to go to. So
Because that's what I love about it. If I think of our students graduated with civil engineering degrees, you can go into the banking system, you can work for an NGO, you can work for a design company, you can work on a construction site, you can end up where I'm sitting, where I'm doing research. And it's all with the same degree, which is actually fantastic.
It is, and I don't think there's any particular profession that allows you with that kind of flexibility.
It's exactly that, to say there's so much more than you think. You think mining engineering and you probably imagine a guy with a pick and a shovel. No, it's nothing like that. There's drones, there's thermal drones, thermal cameras, automation, automated equipment, there's coding. So it's a lot bigger than you think it is, and you can get into so much work. We have mining engineers that are leading divisions in banks because you need to have the technical expertise to decide whether a certain mining project is worth funding or not. So you can get to design, research, environmental space, because I said to Prof. Maharaj the other day that social problems can be solved by engineering solutions. So it's so much wider than you think it is, and you can get into any space you want to get into and you're curious about. So yeah, I always get excited, like you said, mechanical engineering. I had a friend who went and worked for Boeing in the UK because it's, that kind of applicability of your engineering degree. So much bigger. Just stay curious and you love it.
Yeah, I think you guys are hitting all the things. I think one thing that I want to add is I think engineering requires a little bit of fearlessness. And I almost want to say, because it's going to transform you and change the way you view the world and change the way you think. You're going to be frustrated, you're going to feel like you're not good enough. Those are all normal things to feel. And to not let that discourage you, but to really dig deep and be fearless in your approach to challenges. And studying engineering is challenging in that way. I think more so than the math and science is the changing of your perception is something to be ready for. Have a growth mindset, be open-minded, and don't...
And don't, I think most of the students that come here that study engineering are used to getting A's for everything.
Yeah.
And suddenly you fail a test, or more than one test, and your world collapses. And it shouldn't collapse, because it's a mindset. You can do it, you must just open your mind to think differently.
Exactly.
And I do think the school system currently are training school kids to get marks instead of questioning things, solving it in different ways. So I think that to me is the biggest challenge for students getting to campus is don't give up. If you fail the first time, change your study methods. Think of it open-mindedly, and if you can pass school with an A for maths or physics, you can pass university engineering. You must just open your mind and think fresh. Marielle, what advice?
So really, I think I'm sort of going to repeat what all of the ladies have said here. But what I want to add is, when I was, I think, in a position like most of you are now, deciding what you want to do in university, I was so confused. I wanted to do film, I wanted to do music composing, I wanted to become a doctor. My head was all over the place. So try and narrow down what it is you enjoy doing. Because remember, this is something that you're going to be doing for the rest of your life. Luckily, in engineering, as the ladies have mentioned, there are so many different fields that you can go into. But think about what you enjoy doing, because that plays a big role. And one thing that I also want to mention is why I'm so happy that I chose engineering in the end. And really it comes down to the fact that engineering shifts your mindset completely. The way you think changes. It's complete 180. You look at things in such a different way, and I think you can take the skills that you learn in engineering and apply it to any other field. So I think it was a piece of advice that my dad gave me. Go and study engineering now, and if you want to do the music composing, and if you want to go into film afterwards, do that. But having that thinking from engineering is just it's really going to give you another advantage.
Great. At this stage now, we're going to move across and we're going to show a short video, and that will give you a chance to send us questions, and it will give us a chance to look at the questions and then hopefully answer your questions for you.
Welcome to E-Bits.
I think if I look back over my study career, I can clearly see how my thought patterns developed. I realized that I started to look at problems differently. Problems weren't as scary to me anymore as they were when I was younger. I could logically think about what the steps are that I need to follow. It was quite fantastic when I started to see the world from another perspective, where problems and challenges aren't scary anymore, but that they're actually opportunities to change for the better.
When I look at how I used to approach a lot of problems, not necessarily like an academic, but life problems in high school, and now I can see that there's a vast difference. Because now the way I've been thinking, like logically, and just like everything has like a path, like you need to do this to get to that. If that doesn't work, don't do that. Like I just go for it, and you know, I don't want to say I'm not an emotional person anymore, but I just think really logically, and if something doesn't make sense to me, then I don't see the point of it. So if anything, I can really say that engineering has just caused me to think in a real straight line. No more beating around the bush, just get straight to it.
Before I was a very spontaneous person. I would do things just off the bat as soon as they come into mind. But now I actually sit and plan things. Like I enjoy decoding things, finding out the nitty-gritty, trying to see where everything fits in. And I think engineering played a big role in that. I'm very self-aware of how my actions affect other people. And I think that comes in with the group aspect. And you have to be responsible for yourself and understand that whatever you do is going to affect the group's result.
There's always a longing or a need for understanding something, so just getting information is not good enough. It has to make sense in a bigger context. It has to relate to something else. It can't be something incoherent or something disconnected from a whole. It's not so important what the content is, but it's more important for me that there is a process of understanding and that things are somehow congruent. The way that engineering changes your perspective or changes your way of viewing different parts of your life, that has really been the biggest shift in how engineering has changed me.
I like breaking things down, okay? I don't like looking at things at the whole space. I'd like breaking things down and see how they actually come together. I really think it does help me in engineering because there's almost no engineering problem that you can solve without actually breaking it down into smaller components.
I've always been quite a creative person. I love photography, and I find that whenever I'm working on a project, I'm able to bring very creative and unique solutions to a problem that we're trying to solve. And while I don't have all the skills yet, I think I'm definitely on my way to building them.
As an individual, because of my journey, because I was born in Nigeria, I am Persian, and I have a lot of diversity in my family. You need to bring a little bit of empathy sometimes, especially because we do work with people, and you need that. It's not always numbers and machines. There's also people working in the environment. It's not AI completely yet.
To be a good leader, you cannot expect people to do what you are not prepared to do yourself. And I really enjoy inspiring and educating others about the field of engineering because of how vast it is. And there's so many things you can do as an engineer. It's incredible what we can create. And working as a team, we can create even better things. I mean, there's no chance I could work just as myself and work on big projects as an engineer. I'd never be able to do it without a team. And to work as a team, because we all have so many different ideas, just seeing the end product, bringing everybody together, knowing everybody's learned, it's teamwork.
I'm very people orientated. I love people and I love building relationships with people and just keeping peace in that space. So I'm more on the emotional side. I enjoy accommodating people, and I feel like in that environment where people actually feel comfortable, where people feel like they're being heard, more ideas come out and we can get to better results at the end of the project.
I love people. So I love to connect people. I love to connect to people personally, and I love to connect a bigger group of people. I like to be involved with projects where there is multidisciplinary interactions. I like doing big projects, and I think that's what I can bring to the engineering scene. Connect people and to inspire people to work towards a common goal.
Right. Thank you for coming back to us. Thank you for the comments and the questions. And we're going to try and answer some of them. The first question we've got is from Krisha Radia. And the question is, how have you overcome imposter syndrome experienced by many females in the engineering field? I think I'm going to start with Lelani.
Yeah, I don't know if you do, and I don't know if it's really only a female issue. We had a quick chat about that, and I think what was interesting is the fact that you're always facing problems and challenges, and you're always questioning whether you have all the parts to understand this, or whether you have all the people involved that needs to work together in this. But I found in my own life, I often have went through phases where I'm like, am I good enough to have a master's? Am I good enough to have a PhD? Am I good enough now to still have a PhD? And a lot of students that I've mentored over the couple of years have the same. And it's been so, it was so great for me while I was doing my PhD. I spent a year with a research group in Los Angeles, and all of them were men. And they were very open about how they feel like they don't belong in this program, that it's too difficult for them. And the first time there, I realized, I'm like, wow, okay, so what I'm feeling is normal. Everyone else is feeling it. And the more I spoke about how the fact that I feel like this is challenging, am I good enough, will this work, everyone around me said exactly the same thing. So I almost want to say, if you feel like an imposter, you are in the right direction. So I don't know if any of you have anything else to add.
You're absolutely right. If you feel like an imposter, it means you're challenging yourself to do something you're not very familiar with.
Exactly.
And that's a good space to be in, because it means you're learning new skills. Like you said, I don't think it's uniquely female. And you know, I used to struggle with that when I started working, and then that's when I went honors and I went masters, because I thought if I grow my technical expertise and my skills, I'll get to a point where I'm like, I got this. I think now I'm like 70%, I got this, but there's also that 30% where you still think, maybe I don't know enough, maybe let me learn more. And that's a good thing, because it's forcing you to be, you know, to keep challenging yourself. And I loved it when we had the conversation and you said, no, I don't feel like that anymore, because, you know, with 30 years experience, you walk into any place and you are sure of your expertise and your skills, and you can solve a lot of the problems that come your way. So also growing through the process helps you to overcome imposter syndrome.
Yeah, but I think learning, I mean, you latched on to the fact that learning is a never-ending experience, and it should always be that way, irrespective of where you're sitting, I mean, even after all the years. So I think continuous, professional development is critical to your own development as an individual. So
I think almost for me there was a shift in perspective where I, on the one side, thought I need to know all the answers, I need to be able to solve all the problems myself, to I can admit when I don't know the answers, I don't understand it fully, and I need someone to give me support and guidance. And that really opened everything up. in team workspaces, as well as in my personal life even, coming with, I have a set of skills and expertise, I know what I can do really well, and I'm confident in that, but there's a part that's a bit like fuzzy. So let's think about that together. And in that kind of discussion and brainstorming, things become clearer, and then you don't have to do that on your own.
But if
so
there
I
are
think-
no uncertainties, you're not growing anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
actually, it's not a bad thing. Our next question is from Lisa Talyard. How does one approach the uncertainty as a female engineer on whether you'll receive acknowledgement based on your gender or whether it's based on your actual skill? Shoo. From my side, I don't think I've ever had acknowledgement because I'm a female engineer. I think maybe Malani?
No, I think from me as well, Elsabe, I don't think it was because I was a female. I think because it was of my professional abilities rather than being female. And I would like to, I think as females, we are our own worst enemies because we shouldn't really be, conscious of the female element, but more on our professional skills and abilities. And that is an acceptance of that even in your work environment is really important. So in terms of the acknowledgement piece based on your gender, I think it goes with the territory. I mean, if you've done exceptionally well on a project, or if you've contributed in a specific way, take the acknowledgement. It's because you've done well.
Yeah.
Accept it and say thank you.
Exactly.
Next question is from Mercy Bateng, and she says, good evening. I recently went to look for vacation work, and a female engineer told me I need to toughen up to work in engineering. Do you have any tips on how I can be prepared for work as an introvert?
Yeah. I think we all get that advice when you do start, and I wasn't as extroverted maybe, but when you start and you need to stand in front of people and you need to lead, you get that a lot, to say don't take things so seriously, and that's a true comment, to say it's business at the end of the day, and don't internalize a lot of what you hear. And get a good mentor that will, I remember my one mentor when I said, I don't think I'm doing the right things and I'm not getting the results that I want, because sometimes you won't get the results you want. He says, it's about the effort that you put in and you having comfort that you are doing the right things. So the self-belief that comes with, I'm doing the right things. So yeah, the work environment is not an easy environment, and resilience means things will come your way. Don't take them personally. At the end of the day, the people that are there are also trying to grow the company. It's the success of the company. It's not about you as an individual. So take that in stride and just, and develop the soft skills. Once you are strong in your technical skills, you know that whatever is said to you is not personal. It's about the problem that we're trying to solve. So,
But I think all of us had to toughen up. Yeah. Engineering is a tough environment. And you can go home and cry. You don't cry in the office openly. It is so, it takes time to toughen up, and you have to toughen up to survive. Yeah. Because
and I think talking about your challenges actually assists in overcoming any sort of problem, but also the fact that being an introvert is not such a bad thing, and if you are specifically orientated to be more technically kind of focused. In fact, a lot of people that I've dealt with in the past that are highly technically skilled are introverts. Yeah. And they tend to excel in their area and specialist areas. And so there is a space for everyone, but I agree with my fellow panelists that one does need to develop certain soft skills to be able to adapt to the work environment effectively and to be recognized as well.
Yeah.
I almost want to say it's not only females that experience this.
Yes.
I think we maybe are just more verbal about it. Or we complain about it to each other, or whatever the case may be. But I think it's a general thing that you will face going into engineering, especially if you're someone that processes things more internally, or that doesn't like interacting in groups or networking in that way. So it's almost, toughen up almost feels like you have to get a hard shell, but I almost want to reframe that to say it's not that you're becoming tough in that way, but rather that you're actually, sorry now, this mask, throat situation. It's almost like you have to change your perception in, okay, this situation is really challenging. What do I need to develop on a personal level? Do I need to develop different communication skills? Do I need to not be so sensitive about things that are not personal? Those kind of, it is the professional development. And those opportunities are actually amazing for you to practice. So almost to
as a young
reframe.
engineer, I couldn't speak at all in public.
Of course,
not
yeah.
at all. And I ended up going to Toastmasters, just plain to be trained how do you speak in public, because I couldn't do it at all, because I'm a complete introvert. So there's hope for you yet. We've got a next question from Kateto Kupani, and it says, good evening, ladies. How do you approach mentors that are willing to mentor undergrad students? Wow, in the current environment, that's a tough question, I think. Malani?
I think the voluntary associations do play a very active role in this space, particularly if you belong to some of the chapters. There's a lot of individuals that actually do take the mentorship very seriously, and I'm sure that the undergrads are actually already student members of certain of the voluntary associations.
Yeah, I must say, joining a society at your university is one of the best ways to receive mentorship. At Engineers Without Borders, for example, we do a lot of mentorship events, and we'll bring in professional engineers from the field who can give you advice, who can give you tips. And if you want to then, after that event, take it further and ask them for advice and stay in touch with them, usually the engineers are more than open to doing that. I think, meeting new people and networking is so important in order to get mentorship. You need to reach out to people in order to find those mentors. I definitely don't think they'll come looking for you. You need to go looking for them.
And if you're serious about securing jobs, I think it's a good place to start. Because the networks, the networks are critical.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of excellent programs, like in Engineers Without Borders, there's the vertically integrated program, there are Baja in mechanical engineering, there are all kinds of, the Aero Society, all kinds of societies and programs where you can find these kind of mentors in your peers, and maybe students that are a bit older than you, but also in industry. So it's very good to become involved in these projects.
And some professional bodies have student divisions to them. So like you get the SATMA and the SAIM, where there's a student membership where you can interact with the leaders of those associations and get mentorships, and members who are already at industry and get mentorship. So just network, get out there and meet people.
We need to wind up. So at the moment, if you have any additional questions for us or you want more information, there's contact details that's going to scroll across the screen for Esti Powell at the EBIT faculty of the University of Pretoria. And you can send her any questions. If she can't answer it personally, she'll send it to one of us. So you can mark it out for us. She will contact us and we will send you an answer if you still have a question. So just before we wind up, one last question to each of you. And the question is, if we look into the future, what's the skills required for the engineer of the future? Where do we dream? Where do we think engineering is going? I know when I studied, there was no computers. I worked for 5 years before I worked on a PC for the first time. We were trained at university with punch cards instead of computers. No cell phones, no internet. And it's a completely different world today. And continued learning as an engineer has made it possible for me to adjust and adapt to the circumstances. But where do we see ourselves going in the next 10, 15 years? What skills do we think the engineers of the future would need? Malani.
Perception, to be able to perceive and to interpret what our communities need and require, and to be able to think it and design it now for the future. I think, as I said earlier, we're sitting in an environment and a time in history that could potentially change a lot of things. At this stage, it's very cloudy and difficult to interpret in terms of what the actual needs are, because we're all being conscious of the pandemic and the vaccination program and getting that out very quickly. But I think it's also an opportune moment for us to sit back and to think, how can we do things differently? How can we craft things and make things faster, better, more efficient, and more importantly, very conscious of what we're doing to the environment. That's going to make all difference on our existence.
Yeah. No, I echo the same sentiments. You need to perceive and be perceptive, and also just stay curious. The technology is growing quite fast, and you need to be able to stay on top of things and see how you can apply them to the kind of engineering problems that you are facing. So stay on top of the new knowledge that's coming out, because you might find that the solution to a problem does not lie only within what you've learned, but it might lie in the medical field or even in nature and the environment and how we learn. So keep watching things that are outside and looking at things and reading things that are outside of your environment, and see what from that you can apply in your working environment.
I also believe the engineer of the future will have to be more integrated.
Yeah.
I want to say integrated and collaborative. Like, none of the problems that we're going to face are going to be single disciplines. It's going to be multidisciplinary, and so we all need to keep an open mind, listen, and understand how to collaborate in this new space.
So I think right now, technical skills like investing your time into learning about artificial intelligence and blockchain and renewable energy, that's all the rage right now. But things are going to change. You know, new technology will come about. And I think what's so important is just to stay abreast, to know about the new technology that is sort of popping up and cropping up in your field. And something else that I do want to mention with regards to that is fields change all the time. So prepare yourself. Prepare yourself for problems that don't yet exist. And prepare yourself for jobs that don't yet exist. That's what UP often says they do. They prepare us for jobs that don't exist. So I would say, yeah.
I hope you enjoyed our panel discussion. We certainly enjoyed being here despite the masks. So I would like to say thank you to the panelists and goodbye to all of you.